Welcome back. Today we're going to try something different. We're going to try combining 3D printing skills with crafting and see if we can make some hobby coasters. So let's go into it and see how it goes. So the idea behind this came from seeing lots of resin pours and details, and I wanted to get into doing resin, and I thought, how best to get into it? I thought I'd try and combine it with some other hobby, do some painting and see what I could make. So got some coaster molds, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to print some logos for hobby on the filament printer, paint them up, and then I'm going to cast them with the resin and see how it goes. So let's get into the 3D models themselves. As you can see, these have all been 3D printed and all of these files are available on Thingiverse. So the first one is a scatter template for Blood Bowl, and you can see this is a Norse design and I love this one. It's actually the second time I've printed it out. A little bit of paint. This could actually be used really easily as a game accessory, but also looks really nice. Now, we all know one of the things that we play across all games is orcs, and similar to the first, this is a Blood Bowl scatter, but this is the orc one. It's simple, it's effective, but it makes you want to say, wow, orc. I've then tried to look at how I do all of my gaming and what different types of games I've got. So the next one I've got is the kill team symbol. And this is just a nice simple hex. I think I inflated the size up a little bit, so it's not too thick, but this will look really good. Definitely some black and orange needed to be painted on that one. Fourth, current lovely game that I'm playing quite a lot of is Warcry, and this is the nice simple Warcry symbol. This is actually a Warcry token. I think it was inflated up in the X and Y axis by about 400%, still quite thin as you can see, and that's going to look really good if I just paint the middle of that. And then last but not least, Necromunda. So it's the Necromunda token, and again inflated up in size. You can see the details come out really nice. These are all printed on the plastic printer, so they're quite light, they're quite simple. I'm going to put some paint on them, nothing too complicated. Then I'm going to put them into the coasters and see how they go. So models printed, how do I paint them? Well, I'm not going to spend too much time and effort on this because they're going to be within coasters and I'm not even sure if this is going to work. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give them a good prime, bit of an undercoat, both sides, because remember I'm going to see both sides. Then I'm going to paint them up pretty simply. To make my life a little bit easier, what I'm going to do with both the Kill Team logo and the Far Cry 8-point logo is I'm going to cover them up with tape and then spray them with the appropriate colour to try and save a lot of time. So that's going to be with the orange and red, and then I will hopefully have just a bit of touch up to do. The others, just going to put a quick bit of paint on them, a couple of base coats, making sure that coverage is reasonably good. I'm not going to spend too much time and effort on it. A little bit of white touch up on some areas just to make sure the prints look good, and then I'm going to get into the resin. So let's see what they look like when they've been painted. To save myself some time with the painting, you can see here I've spray painted the two logos and taped off the areas I wanted to keep white. Both needed a little touch up, but I was happy with the time saved. I then painted the other logos and just touched up a bit of white to make them really stand out. So the coasters are painted, they're ready, we've got our plastic molds. It's now time to make some resin coasters. For this I'm using some craft resin. We've got this off Amazon. It's got really good reviews. Let's give it a go. Got all the appropriate safety gear, so respirator mask, gloves, lots of paper towels to clear up some mess, A really good tip that I've been told is to make sure you've got something else to make. So if you have any resin left over, you can use it, because you're not going to want to leave it at the end. So I've got everything ready to go. We get suited up, start mixing, fingers crossed. So off we go. Now we're going to use the measuring scales to make sure that we can actually do this right. We're looking for about 180 mil, so 180 grams. So it's half and half of the 2 resin layers. So start very carefully. So 83 of the first one. Okay, now we've mixed it, we're actually going to add in a tiny little drop of colour. So this is black, and I'm literally going to drop in two drops, because I can always add more. Now the trick with resin apparently is to stir slowly. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, so we've got 4 moulds and the coaster holder. I'm actually going to put this one in the coaster holder, but that way. Now I'm worried that it might not seal, so I'm going to pour some resin into that first. I'm going to start with a little pour into each one, and then I'm going to put in the print. And on this one, it should just roll down the slides. So now I've got first pour done, I'm just going to spread these out. You can see that slight bit of colouring. It's actually a lot more subtle than I thought it was going to be. That's good. So here we go. Into the moulds. So that's an orc scatter symbol. That's the Norse scatter symbol. That's the war cry symbol. And of course, kill team symbol. Let's put that one in there. Might have to come back to that one. So let us pour. So first pour went well. Was a little bit short on a bit of resin, so just mixed up a little bit of clear just to top it up. Of course, remember, resin is self-leveling, so the biggest thing you're going to need to remember is to do it on a flat surface. Just going around the moulds, seeing where still got a bit, can slightly overfill. Surface tension is your friend here. So now the resin is poured, what you want to do is just get rid of the little bubbles. You might be able to just see a couple of little bubbles. I've got a little a food blowtorch. Heat gun will work beautifully here. Just turn it on. Give it a light blowing over the top. It makes the bubbles pop beautifully. Just go around it a couple of times. If you see any smoke coming off the resin, that is a good sign to stop. So think about just got them all there. Right, just slightly floated off center with the Kill Team one. I think at this point it's good to let it dry. So here we are, 48 hours later, and let's demold the resin. I did check on it about 24 hours after I'd poured. It was still a bit sticky, especially the slight over pour that I'd left in the silicone cup to check how it would harden. I think it might still be a little sticky just on the underside of the moulds, but it's been 2 days and I can't wait any longer. So time to put the gloves back on, let's get it out of the moulds and let's see what it looks like. So here we go. Gloves are back on, it's time to demold. Let's see how this goes. So firstly, the Warcry one. All peeled off the edge all right. Tiny bit of sticking where I peeled it off from. Coming out all right so far. Still a little bit tacky. I think we might want to think about leaving these in. Oh, still definitely tacky on the bottom. So that may have messed that one up. We'll stop playing with that. As you can see, I think I've rippled that one. Might have to file that one down, but it's definitely not right, so we'll stop there. We'll come back in another couple of days. So after a quick look around on the internet, I thought I'd try again to see if it's all of them or if just where I've done some sticky. Try this all one. See it. Little. Oh, this one's better. This This one's much better. Oh, now that one appears to have worked really nicely. Ooh, a little bit of positivity. Let's try the next one. Ooh. Good news. Good news. Oh, little bit of stickiness on the back. Just see there? That's just peeled up. Now, that's peeled. I can probably sand that down and then do a little bit of a clear pour in just to do that. So we're just gonna actually stick that one on there. Put that one there so we know that's not great. Let's have a look at the Kill Team one then. Has this worked? Good start. Oh, this is much more satisfying. And turn it over. Oh yeah, that one's worked beautifully. There we go. And let's try this one, the big one. So remember, this one's got one in upside down. So far so good. Peeling it off with a silicone is a bit interesting. Oh, just tiny little bit. Oh, massive air pocket. See, that's going to need sealing, but again, should be able to seal that one. That's really interesting. Oh, that's a good lesson to learn. A couple of air bubbles there. Definitely something to learn about filament printing, is that it's not great. So we're going to peel this one all the way out. It's not as bad now, just let it dry a little bit. See, so it's a sticky, well, that one's also a sticky hole, but it's also a sticky top. So definitely that clear resin that I poured at the end, don't think I mixed it as well. So I'm going to need to sand that off and then go from there. But all in all, these ones have worked really nicely. No air pockets, no details. So all in all, pretty good. So on to the fixing. So back about a day after I'd taken the prints out of the moulds, let's see how they came out. Let's start with the good. So firstly, the Orc scatter template came out really nicely. Colours come up really well. It's nice and light, firm around the edges. Really pleased with that. It's got a nice crisp detail. Secondly, the Kill Team one. Again, came out really well. You can see actually where it's slightly floated off. I think I had a bit of a leveling problem with the desk. I'll come back to that. That looks really nice. No air bubbles. Really pleased with the finish. And then the third one, which is the actual coaster holder itself. As you can see, this one's got the Escher symbol on it for Necromunda. I'm really pleased with this one. A little bit of smudging around the edges where it took a while to set, getting it out of the mould bent it a little bit, and that air bubble that I had underneath the print itself, which I could just fill with some resin, with some clear resin, that would absolutely seal up fine. And even better, I can prove that it does actually work. You can put the coasters in the mould and it goes really well. So at this point you might be going, I thought there were 4 coasters. What happened to the other ones? Well, there were 2 other ones, which was the Warcry coaster and the Norse Scatter one. If you remember correctly, the Warcry one had quite a bit of stickiness on the side and on the bottom, and so did the Norse one. Had a little bit on the top and thought a little bit on the bottom. Took those outside to clean them up. The idea was to scrape off the sticky resin and see if that was just that second pour that I'd done, the clear, and put it in and then go from there and top it up. Turned out into a bit of a disaster. Trying to get the resin off when it was extremely sticky just meant everything stuck to it. I think the worst bit was when the gloves I was wearing were sticking to the resin and then tearing as I pulled them off. All in all, it was an unmitigated disaster, definitely in the lessons learned. So I ended up with 2 coasters and the coaster holder as opposed to the 4 that I was aiming for. So let's wrap it up and see where we go from there. So managed to do some of it well, some of it not well. What lessons would I learn out of it? Well, firstly, I'd learned that filament floats on resin. So definitely one of the things to think about is a 2 pour for doing resin with filaments. So pour a base layer, put the print on top of that. You don't mind then if it floats. Let that cure off and then do a secondary pour on the top. Bit of a clear one, make it really seal very nicely, and therefore you can pour into the filament, make sure there's no air bubbles that come out. Although actually I think I'd print the prints in a slightly higher infill to make sure there weren't as many air bubbles in them. That would be definitely one of the lessons. Actually, in terms of the pour itself, one of the things I think for this desk, it's not quite horizontally flat, so really making sure that you're careful on how things are flat, because the resin will settle to that nice level. That's something I'll definitely look at going forward. And then the resin itself. So the first pour worked really, really well. I was really pleased with it. The second pour, and looking back at the video, I definitely rushed the stirring. I didn't give it a good enough stir, and therefore that's where it started to go wrong. I didn't stir it enough, I didn't mix it well enough, and it didn't cure as well. And absolutely that would be a lesson learned. Bit of a process for how you clean it, how you tidy it up, how you look after it. The warmth definitely helped. I did it over the bank holiday weekend. The sun came out, kept the room warm, helped cure it. Something to think about going forward. Would I do it again? Absolutely. Would I do it again with hobby stuff? Absolutely. One of the things I've been thinking about is taking one of the miniatures that I've painted that I'm not going to play with, that are for display, and actually casting them in like a resin cube, making a diorama maybe. Definitely doing some resin pours for like rivers or lava for Warcry. Really interested in doing something like that. Hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed learning the lessons that I've learned along the way, and if you're going to have a go at it yourself, please do. It's amazing fun, looks great, and something that you'll absolutely look back and go, I did that, I'm really pleased with it. If you like the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and there'll be more content coming soon. Otherwise, happy gaming, have fun.